So the interest in the that one web server was going up by a factor of 10 every year. An exponential growth, a very steady exponential growth. So at first it was geeks who were excited, and then it was the Economist, I think, was the first newspaper, then other newspaper, then the tabloid press, and then even ministers and heads of state started to become aware of this as the news spread, and we realized that we needed to coordinate this growth. So that was the point when I went around the world looking for places to start some World Wide Web consortium. Companies wanted to make a consortium, and so they needed somewhere that they could trust to join together and build consensus. Because the important thing about the web is that it's only one web. When you follow a link from a web page, it can go to any place. You don't have an academic web and a commercial web. You don't have a web of high-quality documents and a separate web of low-quality documents, and then a system for promoting them from one to the other. Whenever you draw a line, if you ever draw a line through the web into two halves, so that links can't cross from one to the other, then you destroy the web. Because suddenly the value of each half is terribly badly damaged, and each half will then disintegrate. If a company got to control half the web, then another company got to control half the web, it wouldn't work. So the very important thing about the web was its universality. The same web must work for all types of information, for all languages, for people in all cultures. It should work no matter what type of computer you used, or what type of operating system you used, or which browser software you decided to use. It must work particularly whether or not you had disability. If your eyesight wasn't very good, the web should be able to work for you too. So the universality was its primary goal, and has always been a key thing behind its engineering. So there I was, 1992, 93 came around, and during 1993 it was clear that we had to start something. The internet, which is the underlying network, which was invented 20 years before the web, okay? The internet and the web are very different things. The internet is this connectivity between the computers which I'd used to build the web on top of it. The internet was started in the United States. It had even been resisted a bit in Europe. I was very lucky to come at a time when it was just breaking into Europe. So CERN was one of the first places to get the internet. But when the web took off, because the internet was so well established in America, the web took off very, very quickly across the internet in America. The web was at all the American universities. So I really had to have a base in America to start this consortium. So somebody suggested that I should talk to Michael Detouzos, who wrote the preface to the book. And he, as you can tell from the preface to the book, was very supportive. He took me under his wing. He organized for me to go to MIT. He organized for the people he knew in the industry to support the consortium. And when I explained to him that actually I didn't want to really leave Europe completely, I really wanted the consortium to be international. Because I was very worried that when I went to MIT, I had this vision that the people at MIT would only see MIT or only see America, and they would start something which would be very American. But I found out that he was extremely pleased to make something, because of course he was a Greek, and so he was passionate about getting things happening in Greece, he was in Europe, and particularly to have collaborations internationally, so that this World Wide Web, as I called it, could actually really be worldwide. So, in fact, George Matakidis, a good friend of Michael Detouzos, and Michael together, got together, and the Greeks at that point were very much dominant when it came to the forces, often behind the surface, but the strong forces getting things to happen, arranging a high-level diplomatic dinner at which people from both sides of the Atlantic, first we involved Japan later, agreed that the World Wide Web Consortium should be formed and that it should be an international thing. So it's nice to come back here and celebrate that, that Greek connection across the Atlantic, even though unfortunately Michael de Touzos is no longer with us. So that was the consortium, and the consortium really deploys standards. When we know how to do something, it makes sure that everybody, all the computers do it in the same way, speak the same language. And in deploying standards, it makes new markets, and it's been quite successful. It has a good reputation as being a fair and open place. It also has established that when you do work with the World Wide Web Consortium, that work will be available to everybody in the world without them having to pay any royalties. That's a very important thing, which it took us a long time for Danny Weitzer and others to lead the industry to a point where they could make that as much as they could of a guarantee. In fact, the stage was set back in 1993 by CERN when CERN said that CERN would not be charging any royalties, and that was a great start on the road to being a royalty-free space, and that has been an essential part of the growth of the web. So now here we are, and the web has grown, and the web, yes, as George said, it has about 10 to the 11 web pages. It has as many web pages as there are neurons in your brain. But of course, the neurons in your brain, they go down every time you have some wine, and the neurons and the web pages on the web, they go up every moment. There's new web pages being produced. But if you can imagine taking the web and making a model of the web and making it the size of the brain, and if I could put it in front of you, you wouldn't recognize it. It'd be a very strange shape. It'd be very tangled, because any part of the web can connect to any other part. The brain has some large-scale structure. It has the visual nerves which go from the front to the back, and so on. But the web has a structure which we didn't plan. That we designed how two people connect, how a person connects to a web server. The HTTP protocol defines how one web browser talks to one web server. But what happens with the web, the actual connections which are made by people, those have emerged. So the web is a very complex thing. And we all realized that there was nobody really doing a science of it. There is a science of the brain. There's cognitive science. It's made from people from different disciplines like psychology and biochemistry and genetics and all various science which connect to how a brain is produced and how brain functions. And they've come together, they've made cognitive science, and they're making quite a lot of progress in understanding the brain. We need to do the same thing for this huge thing. Very different in some ways, different two fundamental ways. One is, for the web, if you like, we are the little atomic things. That when a link is made, a person makes a link. They make a blog, and they refer to another blog, they're making a link. When somebody follows a link, it's a human being follow a link. So the nodes, if you like, are people. The web is humanity connected. It's very big. The other different thing about the web is that we didn't design the brain. We observed the brain. But the web was something we designed. And so we could redesign it. We could change it. If we discover that it should be different, we have a duty to make sure that it is the optimal.